Okay. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another lecture. Um, I honestly have something planned after this, so I gotta make this quick. Sharing a lecture. So, if a time traveler could come from the future, what would it point out? We're missing. Pretty much, I was fascinated to see if I can figure out what exactly is missing. See, the issue is that we all know exactly is missing. See, the issue is that we all know this. Like, there's moments in life where you do something, and then, like, maybe that you realize the best thing you could have done, or maybe years after that, you realize the whole thing could have been different. Now, consciously, we as human beings can't, like, externally go into the future, see what it's like, come back and live life accordingly, you know. But I thought that perhaps AI can share some research, and of course I have my own probabilities and personal visions on this, but I wanted to start today's lecture by sharing with you, reading for you what AI has blind spots, and I want to know exactly how, what great, excuse me, pretty much in every moment. So I call this the advancement principle. So imagine, like, anything I wanted to do now, I could fathom someone else doing it better. In the sense of, like, if I wanted to make an omelet, right? There's someone in Japan who can make a way better omelet than me. So what does this mean? The probability of the advanced version or response to the moment exists. It's like every moment has a genius angle to it, but it needs to be found. Okay, and we have to, in some sense, wonder about this. So for me personally, it's to become aware. It's like you reach a certain point in this life where what you don't know is more fascinating than what you know. Watch this yourself as a limited being. So the whole attempt is like you're this intelligence in this world. You don't know how advanced you are, but it depends on you to truly see how advanced you are. And of course, ultimately depends on the higher power as well. Now, what's interesting is for this lecture, I pretty much came to ask AI, like, yo, man, what would a human being, time traveler from like 1,000 years in the future, if it came back now, what would it say? But I accidentally wrote 100 years, so it first gave an answer to 100, and then I corrected it, and then it gave an answer to 1,000. Intentionally, the intention was 1,000 years initially. So, anyways, let's see. So this is AI generated. If a time traveler I'm just going to read it. If a time traveler from 100 years in the future came back, not to marvel at the past, but to warn and awaken us, they will deliver a message piercingly clear, transcendent, and unflinching. Here is what such a traveler might reveal: everything humanity is not seeing or considering, told from the height of hindsight and human evolution. Told from the height of hindsight and human evolution. So guys, first, a time traveler, imagine from 100 years in the future, is coming back, and it's trying to tell us what we're missing. You should use the value of this lecture as just expanding the horizons of your conceptual territory in reality. Okay, so it's the ideas and how the ideas expand the context that are way more important than just the idea. You know, so AI says you're blind in five fundamental ways, and these blind spots are costing your future. One, this is for the 100 years, okay? One, you do not see the interconnectedness of all things. You still treat, so one is you don't see the interconnectedness of all things. You still treat the world as separate, nature from economy, self from society, mind from body, nations from government. You poison the air to make it taller. You addict your children to dopamine to drive engagement. You believe your loneliness is a personal failure, not a symptom of collective disconnection. Two, guys, that is huge. That last line was heavy. It's like if somebody's wondering why there's hikikomori in Japan and why there is like, loneliness in the human race. Any person you're depressed. All right, guys, it keeps disconnecting. Anyways, I'm going to continue. Anyways, guys, it kept getting disconnected. I don't know how much you heard anything on. It said you believe kept getting disconnected. I don't know how much you heard anything on. It said you believe your loneliness is a personal disconnection, but yes, the things that are our problems, we think it's just ours alone, but in reality, it is the world's problem. It All right, guys. It's reconnecting, but I gotta relocate to somewhere where it has better Wi-Fi. So just bear with me right now. Anyways, the thing I was saying is I was reading for you the research component. Like, give me a couple minutes until I get to another location. I'll keep talking still because it hasn't disconnected yet. See, folks. What I'm trying to say is that the whole thing about this personal lecture, like this lecture that excites me, is that I'm trying to see what is it that a being from 1,000 years could be aware of, or 100 years could be aware of now that we're not seeing. The value is life. In life, they say knowledge is power, correct? But the point of it is that knowledge, in some sense, it's like we're in this uncharted world and it's like endless. It's not just, how do I say it? I'm trying to communicate to you that if we don't become aware of our limitations, if we don't become aware of what we're not seeing, the moment doesn't change. Really, what knowledge and growth and just learning things in life is really your awareness is expanding, and the way you contextually frame reality, that means think of the painting to be the concept, and the frame to be the context of the reality. The picture is framed. Right now, you're a self that is worlded. You're a world itself. Maybe I'm the first person to say it like that, you know? But it's like, yo, man, look at all of us. We've been worlded, guys. We're not just selves alone, independent of existential phenomenology. We're now dependent on existential phenomenology. If we don't eat water, drink food, regulate temperature, procreate, in some sense, you know, have shelter, it's kind of like we have, in some sense, you know, the whole point of it is we don't want to fail ourselves as beings living on this earth, and at the same time, failing yourself is not like yourself is not just you, it is what you are a part of. Okay? Like every person has, let's say, some sort of last name. They're part of something. You know what I mean? And the way the human individual is conditioned, it's in regards to how do I say it? It's like you are not learning anything original when you enter this world at first. You are, in some sense, even though you are like the most original being, like children don't have like an ego that has been conditioned to, you know, concrete rule-based thinking yet. Do you know what I mean? They're pretty much like, this first time engaging this. You know what I mean? So, anyways, the point of it, guys, I have reached a land of Wi-Fi. I've reached Wi-Fi land. You know? All right, we're there, finally. Okay, I gotta make this quick and then try to be like Barry Allen, you know? It's like, yo, I got a formidable opponent tonight. It's a social gathering. Anyways, back to it, guys. Let me first set up the Wi-Fi. My phone data's like shouting, like, you know, whispering slowly, like, save me. You know, all right. Okay, so no more internet issues on the phone. Now just check the laptop and... Can you guys imagine, like, I'm someone like holding a laptop in my both hands and running in like the sidewalk giving a lecture on that laptop? They're like, he takes it seriously, man. You know? Okay. All right, guys. All right. So we were looking into, back to it, we were looking into what would a time traveler from 100 years in the future, if it came back, what would it make us aware of? What would it tell us? And the AI-generated answer said, you are blind in 5 fundamental ways, and these blind spots are costing you your future. I read the first one, I'll read it again. You do not see the interconnectedness of all things. That's the first point. You still treat the world as separate. Nature from economy, self from society, mind from body, nations from each other. But the truth is, nothing is separate. Your actions ripple outward, and your systems, ecological, technological, psychological, are interwoven. You poison the air to make $1. You addict your children to dopamine to drive engagement. You believe your loneliness is a personal failure, not a symptom of collective disconnection. 2, you are enslaved by outdated definitions of success. You measure progress by GDP, growth, fame, speed. But in our time, this is like it being from 100 years in the future, but in our time, we learned growth that devours its foundation is not growth, it's rot. You still glorify the loud, the rich, the visible, while the gentle, the wise, and the regenerative go unnoticed. You have everything, but you have forgotten what it's for. It's like, guys, they're trying to make life into like this endless kind of like nightclub experience. You're so like in the zone, engaged, everything is so intense, but at some point you're going to realize life is not about just one mode of life being correct. It has different intensities. You're a changing being in a changing world, for God's sakes. You know, your sense of self is changing. The ability of your human intelligence, just personally saying this, you know, is there simply as an ability to, how do I say it, like Your awareness gives you an ability to access reality in different ways. See, existence is existing. Like I imagine right now, I'm looking at a tree. Not imagine, like I'm looking at a tree outside of my car window. Now, just imagine how many ways are there to climb that tree. Do you know what I'm saying? That means I could bring a ladder. I could just climb it. I could, in some sense, tie a rope, like throw a rope at the top of it, and somehow, like climb that way. What I'm saying is, somebody can help me get up to it. So what I'm saying is, this is what you need to understand. Your culture, where you were born, is giving you behavioral programs. Okay? And it's not wrong. You need these behavioral programs. Okay? It's a language. It's like, for example, think of it this way. We have like English, we have Italian, we have French, Japanese. You know what I mean? Like we have these languages. Okay, Kendo was it called? So we have these languages, different languages. Now I'm trying to explain to you. There is behavioral languages, and when you see two people from two different cultures, even if they spoke the same language, they speak different behavioral languages. That's the interesting thing. So you see, and you know why it's interesting? Because I noticed this because I'm a twin, and people are like, "Yo, what?" Guys, seriously, I was like, I have a twin brother, and when I was young, they're like, "Yo, man, you twins are so similar." Do you know what I mean? And then I left Iran, and in Canada, I was like, yo, man, it's like all Iranians are twins. Do you know what I mean? It's like all people from Japan are twins. They behavior, mannerisms. So think of it this way. You're not just learning from people, including even just yourself. You are learning from your world. The teacher is like, yo, man, that teacher in school writing on the blackboard with chalk. Do you know what I mean? With an intensity that shatters the chalk into 1,000 pieces. They're like, yo, man, the Hulk is teaching physics. We just haven't found the right chalk. You know? It's like, yo, hey, kids, this is, your professor is Dr., what's his name? Steve Manor. And just don't make him angry, kids. If you want to live, if you want to graduate, don't make Dr. Steve. Imagine the kids in the auditorium. Everybody shut up, we don't want to die. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is that the physical teacher is not the teacher. It's just one aspect of the moment that communicates. When I look at a tree, why don't I say, hey tree, how you doing today? Because the tree's like, buddy, I don't have vocal cords. What the F's wrong with you? Do you know what I mean? For me, when I communicate with trees, I just put my hand there like, hey buddy. Do you know what I mean? It's like that. It's like to acknowledge the presence of a being doesn't have to be just limited to language. Do you know? For me, when I look at human beings, there's something like, see, it's like something about the body, attracts humans, right? Something about a person's mind or ability attracts humans. Another thing is about how a soul stands in this world. For me, this is gonna sound bizarre, but it's like you might be like, yo, Mr. Within, what does that mean? When you see people, you're like not thinking about their body and mind, and you're just being like, how is this soul standing here? Kinda, yeah. You see that because it's all about me asking what value system can I use in a changing world, in a simulated world, to figure out truth. And guys, sorry, I know I was in the middle of reading the research, but I just, I found a rhythm here to say something. So what I'm trying to tell you is it's very strange because the body is simulated for some time. Our minds have, access to express through the simulated body for some time. But when you look at a being, that's a different question. That means if they tell me give a lecture to a human being, I'll be like, okay, the design sets the lecture. Okay, if they tell me give a lecture to dolphins, I'll be like, have you guys thought of hands? You know, they're like, yo, man, this genius inventor, created, hands for dolphins so they can type what they understand about us. You know what I mean? And they're like, yo, man, let's ask the dolphins, is this a good idea? And one dolphin jumps out of the water smiling, like, ee. We're like, okay, they agree. Honestly, guys, what I'm trying to say is I think a sign of true intelligence and true advancement and true ability, the human beings that I have seen on this earth, even though not that many, you know, but the archetypes of humans. So when you, for example, go read about Socrates, you're not fucking, excuse me, you're not reading about Socrates. You're reading about the archetype Socrates expressed himself through. Right now, you're not listening to me. Okay, you're listening to the archetype that is me. That means you're listening to a function of my expression and you treat it as me. Okay, but the function of the expression is just a function. What I'm trying to tell you is that one of the most beautiful feelings, and I got this, I think, out of just being insecure. They're like, yo, man, who knew the hidden benefits of being, shy, introverted, and insecure, and not trusting yourself when you're young? You doubt your existence. Okay? For me, it's not, I'm saying like, yo, guys, it's a lie, break pull the curtain, it's not like that. Because the simulation, even though simulated, its existence, the intention for the simulation's existence was original. Do you know what that means? It means inside the simulation, for a simulated being, yes, it's empty to you, but to outside of the simulation, it's not empty. It's, you know what it is? It's like you put someone, it's like they've put 8 billion beings in a box, and then the beings inside the box are like, yo, man, is this box real? Right? And to them, because there is an outside of the box is not real. Do you understand? The box is not real for them because they're inside the box. But to that which is outside of the box that has created the box, it's kind of like the world is not real to people, but it is real to its creator. It exists for its creator. See, right now, I thought about it. Why is it that, like the parents of, like, if you just looked at human civilization, like a National Geographic documentary, you'd be like, yo, why does this animal care? Why does the human being care when something happens to its, like, own child? Right? But why doesn't it care when something happens to other people's child? That means, why do we care for the emotions of our friends and family, but we don't give a shit about anybody else? We just walk past. I mean, I'm not saying we do that. I'm saying, but why? Because we have personalized it and we're acting as if the personal is only meaningful. That's the issue. Okay, you gotta at some point be like, yo, am I a perfect system? Answer is no. Am I God? No. We have a beginning and an end. We're not that original. We are original design. Like, this design is not from us. But I'm trying to, anyways, I'm going to, guys, I'm going to come back to the checklist. So the time traveler from the future, from 100 years, this AI generated thing I'm reading for you, the guy's coming back and it's like, guys, there's 5 things. You're not seeing 5 things. So 1 was, you don't see the interconnectedness of all things. 2, you are enslaved by outdated definitions of success. So wanting to be successful, no. That's the fuel for the whole hustle culture. But the issue is, what is the definition of success? Let's say you want to be a trillionaire and you become a trillionaire and you're completely alone. Not even your children, grandchildren want to be near you. It's as if you became the most powerful person on earth, but you mutated your soul. Other souls can't relate. Do you know what I mean? The decency, it's like when you do, I'm not saying you got to be indecent. You can't have the savageness of history of men killing each other with swords And then at the same time, be like, yo, man, we want all these businessmen, rich businessmen, to be altruists. You know what I mean? We like from one side there's savageness, from another side we need to realize civility is rare. So if you've ever had a conversation with anyone, I don't care how shy or unshy or confident or unconfident you are, you know, if you've had any sort of human communication with humans, if you've passed by a human and you haven't killed them and they haven't killed you, that's called civility. Okay? That's called civilization, right? The whole point, why do I say advanced civilization? Why don't I say, guys, let's create an advanced savageness? A savagealization. Why not? Guys, let's build an advanced savagealization, guys. You know? No. The whole point of it is we want to capitalize on our ability to not kill each other and to access each other's seas, and in some sense use that to update the whole system. So you're going to see in the future, right? Now I'm different, you know. I have a twin brother, and also, like, you know, when you have a twin brother, you're kind of like, you know, introduced to MMA at a young age. You know? But I'm saying in the future, the world is going to be abused towards non-abuse. Let me tell you what it is. For example, you have the notion of a dictator, like in history, attempting to take over the world. Now, some people are like, yo, man, that's effed up, you know? You know, cloning everybody the same, that's effed up, you know what I mean? And then, but from another angle to that, like, that dictator, even though it's still effed up and wrong, but that dictator might have been like, yo, man, I want to control the world with fear and then make it, you know, a joyful place with one command. Do you know what I mean? Because what ultimately is power is, let's say, control. What is control is, in some sense, controlling the outcome. So many things beyond our control. Anyways, we go to 3. You know, the time travel from 100 years. It's like, what? It's like, we're like, yo, man, what don't we see? And it's saying you don't truly understand time. So, guys, 1, we don't see the interconnectedness of all things. That's a blind spot you currently have. And this is just a dude from 100 years saying it. Let me read for you the one where it's from 1,000 years in the future. So it says, 1, from 100 years in the future, time travelers saying you do not see the interconnectedness of all things. You're enslaved by outdated definitions of success. You do not truly understand time. You rush, you multitask, you postpone healing, you live in crisis loops, but you do not understand the long-term arc of your actions. You sacrifice forests that took centuries to grow for single-use convenience. You ignore climate systems that operate on generational scales. Your greatest power is the future, and you treat it like trash. Guys, don't treat the future like trash. Because at some point, your own soul will kind of look at your ego and be like, how dare you? Do you know what I mean? Because it's the long-term strategy. Long-term strategies, species advances. Short-term strategy, okay, advance as many people as you can before you die. You know, like, that's the whole point. Okay? You know, there's greater purposes to the human species beyond cultural, socio-cultural programs. Every person you've seen is a program, guys. They're like, yo, man, who coded them, though? You know, they're not made from code. I'll be like, you don't believe it. It's behavioral code. You know, at some point it startled me. How many people have I said hi to in this world? I'm very strange, guys. You know, I think this is also another reasons why, you know, I couldn't connect with people. And still, you know, I've reached a point where I firmly believe no person, no one except my creator can understand me. That means I stopped wanting to be understood in this world. You know, it's not possible. The only way it's possible to understand each other if we co-create in the future and witness our real-time souls acting. You know, The whole point of people think that they, for example, dating, it's like, yo man, get to know the past of the person. It's like, you can't. Like, they could tell you any story, but you'll never know, because our past is not just a physical event that could be narrated. It had a specific emotion, specific awareness, a specific conceptual map of what this moment can lead to other moments. That means sometimes I don't just remember my memories, I remember how many different thoughts I had on that memory. There's times where you don't know, but for me it happens that I want to say like two things at the same time, but just vocally I could just say one. I could use poetry to try to share both of their meanings somehow, but I'm saying, like, how do I say it? It's languages, guys. It's like there's a language to how things are being. You're right now a program, let's say language is a program of some sort. You know, you have 26 letters leading to 600,000 words in the English language, and you have, in some sense, 8 billion conscious points, conscious nodes in its existential system, conscious experiential points that in some sense can lead to as many sort of actions and decisions. So it's not just like a human being is a human being. A human being is a sequence of all the decisions they make from the moment they're born to the moment they leave this realm. Okay? And for me, they're like, yo man, should we treat kids like kids and old people like old people? I'll be like, this is the bizarre thing, right? That the mind is not aging like the body is, first of all. It does though, after, like, my grandfather had dementia, and when he passed away, it was very difficult to see. We don't understand it, but this body is not your permanent house. All those people who want to, in some sense, become immortal, you don't get it. It's not, it's a limited room. It's like a hallway. You're not meant to live in a hallway, you're meant to live in the room the hallway leads to. Okay. Anyways, we go to 4. You underestimate your own plasticity. You believe people cannot change, that civilizations can't evolve, that corruption is inevitable, that we are tribal by nature, doomed to conflict. But we've seen different. In our time, cultures emerged that outgrew vengeance, redefined masculinity, and replaced control with cooperation. You can change personally and collectively, but you don't train yourselves to. So anybody who thinks you can't change, that's only true if your environment doesn't change. Like, let's say if you right now can't change yourself. See, the whole point of parents taking care of children is because the child doesn't know how to change itself and doesn't know if it can even change itself. Even though right now we're living in a world where it's filled with, like, there's orphans everywhere, right? So it's very important. In Islam, the orphan is like a rare soul. Do you know what I mean? And it's very important. Why? Because, how do I say it? Sometimes when I look at Earth, I feel like it's been prepared. It's a prepared place. How do I say it? It's like, imagine smarter beings before I was born came in and designed everything, and then I entered. And I'm like, where is this place? Is it natural? It's natural, but adjusted by layers and layers of intelligence. So we don't understand time, guys. Okay? And what does that mean? I'll make a point here. You identify with your past. Identifying with your past is like selecting a wagon when you have a Bugatti. I don't have personally a Bugatti, but there's been a time where I've given so many lectures in a car, like in cars, that I've wondered, like, not to even, like, what would it be like to drive a Bugatti? What would it be like to give a lecture in a Bugatti? But the whole point of that is I'm actually a pretty good driver, actually. But the whole point of it is, what are we missing? So AI. So we go to 4, you estimate your own plasticity. 5, you've lost your reverence for the sacred. Guys, this is the most dangerous thing, and it's a sign of epistemic entropy acceleration. It's scary. Okay? People are like, "Yo, Mr. Within, what do you mean it's scary that people don't think reality is sacred anymore? Or there's sacred values in reality?" I'll be like, "It's scary because if they just need to make one generation forget about truth, and then they wouldn't know how to teach it to the future generations." That's it. It's easy to deceive the human being. We're freaking fragile. Okay? Like, and if an alien species wanted to just invade us, it would just have to cut our oxygen supply. Do you know what I mean? Like, what I'm saying is like, we're fragile. It's too uniquely positioned, too uniquely designed, guys. We're not in some, random thing that we can storify. We're in a specific setting. This is where you get goosebumps as a soul. You're like, okay, he's right. Like, I am kind of creating you, but I'm saying, but creating your archetype. But I'm saying, like, if I was listening to my lecture, I'd be like, yeah. You know how Dave Chappelle kind of says, yeah. The point of it is, you're intelligent. If you were not intelligent, there wouldn't be anything for me to say. Just right now, just like how right now I don't go talking to, like, a stack of bricks. You know what I mean? Even though sometimes I do feel like some people I speak to are like, just, they're like, it's like, yo man, this person has the intelligent response of, like, the architecture of a building. It's like nothing. They're just someone to see. Guys, who knew this lecture, at least for me, would be also, an entertainment. Anyways, guys, where I'm going with this is to keep reading this for you. AI says, and here is the deepest truth: you have mistaken intelligence for wisdom. You've created machines more intelligent than yourselves, but you've not yet matured your own species. You've built algorithms that know your desires better than you do, but you have built a culture that teaches that, excuse me, but you haven't built a culture that teaches you who you truly are. Until you learn to see systems as sacred, it doesn't matter any system. Okay? If somebody says, is like, let's say, in biology, the system of bacteria sacred, I'm like, anything that's a system and has elements moving in it is sacred. Okay? Even the simulation is sacred, but not for us who are in it. Okay? It is technically sacred because it was created by the sacred, by the origin. So if right now people are thinking about the story of their world, and I'm telling you, any person who's trying to understand truth as a human, it's equivalent to like a pet owner, their dog wanting to understand the pet owner, but it only sees it as a bigger dog. That means we're trying to make sense of truth as if, all right, we've simulated our own human truth in this random unknown world setting, right? And now we want to see if our own simulated truth as a species matches and aligns with the truth that is actually here beyond the species. Scientists haven't actually thought what they're doing, guys. I am convinced for the first time in my life that the species doesn't know what it's doing. I am like, this is such a fascinating moment. I reached it. I think I've reached a checkpoint in my lifetime right now where I've realized, oh man, even the moderators on Earth, the visible moderators, don't know what they're doing. That means human souls born in positions of power, that they haven't cared to look at what they have. Do you know? Like, if you ask, like, yo, does a trillionaire care more for what they have, or does a poor person care more for what they have? Do you know? Someone is struggling in the gutters of existence, who in some sense is in some sense has a deeper sense of having things. The major difference is that, I don't know, the child of that trillionaire is born in a completely they are, limitations are not worldly for them. Do you know what I'm saying? Or let me say it this way. Let me explain it to you like this. A rich person, a trillionaire who has a garage of 1,000 cars, losing one car, they don't care. Maybe they care, right? But like, in front of their friends, they're gonna act like they don't care. Okay? You see, guys, they've convinced people your baskets and your whole life is you gotta collect. But I think I've been born at the most fascinating time. Guys, you don't understand, guys. I'm a soul that I'm born between worlds, even though on Earth. But I'm born between worlds. I was born in 1991. Children used to climb trees. I used to climb trees, play, outside, And now children are just like, one park in Canada said it's illegal to climb a tree. And I'm like, yo, man, this is some George Orwellian shit. Like in the background, kind of like, you know, happening. They've denied children to climb trees, and the argument is scary. They're like, for safety. They're like, we want you to be safe, and in order for you to be safe, we don't want you to do anything. That means the amount of experience children had with the natural world has decreased. That means with the modern generations, do you know what I mean? They're gonna be like, bro, why should I climb trees when I can build an app and become a billionaire by the age 10? Do you know what I mean? I'll be like, okay, do you know what I mean? Maybe you gotta consider you don't know what you want. For me, I think that's a beautiful moment. Moments where I don't know what to decide are also moments where I can decide anything. Like, they're like, yo, man, is it hard to feel like the most powerful person on earth? No. Do you know what I mean? It's like you have, what is it? It's like you, it's like, there's like, something, it's like, let's say you smoke a cigarette and you're like, should I throw this cigarette on the ground? Do you know what I mean? Or should I throw it out in like some trash bin or something, after I've like this, like cut off, like, the burning part, you know? Guys, I'm trying to tell you, it's a beautiful moment when you realize your species has no clue what it's doing. None of us do. We all have strategies based on limited information processing. Okay, everybody on Earth needs to relax, realize that we need to try, or just like you can hold an object in your hand and look at it from different angles. Do you know what I mean? You can look at the subjects from different angles. This whole time, you think that you exist. Like right now, there's 3 people listening. Okay, just for the sake of like helping me out. Okay, this is like, I'm trying to. I want you to, in a few words, like explain yourself, who you think you are now, right? Just one archetype that you identify with. It could be any archetype. Do you know what I mean? It could be like, yo, I'm a mother right now. Do you know what I mean? Or you could be, okay, I'm a dictator right now. It's like that escalated quickly. It's like, yo, man, but it is true. I think most children know that mothers are like dictators. You know what I mean? It's like, I thought I have freedom in this world. Go to your room. The first thing I'm gonna do, is if I ever have kids in the future, I'm gonna simulate society in my home. I'm gonna simulate society in my home. If I have kids, like let's say if I have a bunch of kids and they fight, I'm gonna be like, guys, exactly like society. Do you know what I mean? You're gonna all be judged. The whole point of it is the species is smart enough to learn from abstract mistakes before real ones. You as a human being should not fear failure. Anything new you do, because you don't know how to do it, you're not going to be doing it 100% efficiently, right? Sometimes you got to see failure as initiation. That means if there's two people, I'll tell you this. Imagine there's one person, okay? There's two kids, okay? I'm imagining myself as a kid back in the day, and imagine one kid. Pretty much I'm saying one kid fails at soccer, can't kick the soccer ball, right? And another kid has is good at soccer. Okay? Now, the thing is, for the person that failed, or let's say they failed, the failure is the invitation to continue to become a master in that field. Anything you have failed in, anybody who has mastery, the whole point of it is, I'll break it down. You could use this in anything, okay? So I forge this, abstract, I'm a writer, sci-fi writer, and and I've written other things aside from sci-fi, of course, But what I'm trying to tell you is the cool thing about, being a writer is that you think of the destiny of the characters in the universe that you create for them. Okay? And I want you to imagine a setting where I'm just going to tell you a story. There was this kid, his father was a soldier, in the kingdom back in the day in medieval times. And this kid would be like, "Dad, can I come to war?" And the father's like, "No, son, just help your mother, or go sell bread or something, And it's like, "Yo, can I join the war?" "No, go sell bread." It's like, I've been advancing civilization by selling bread, guys. Anyways, where I'm going with this is that kid, the father says, "No, you can't come to the battle. There's a battle. The kingdom has to defend itself." The father dies. Now, at the end, they bring the sword of the father to the mother and the kid, son, imagine, in this story. In this abstract, hypothetical story. And the kid can't even hold the weight of his father's sword. But he takes a stick, and every day where he would, let's say, have to cross, get water or something, do some chore, you know what I mean? The kid would pick up a stick and would treat the trees on his path as, in some sense, like soldiers. You understand? And the kid would, in some sense, every day, and the whole point of mastery is you just repeat something to a point where poetically it becomes ultra instinct. That means I don't have to, I can, how do I say it? I've reached a point where I can explain anything. Do you know what I mean? Because I've been waking up for years just trying to explain what's going on to myself, because I have this OCD of how can I be a person of value if I don't understand the value of this reality? Do you know, it's, there was this time where I had this feeling that in my youth, I was making smarter decisions as a soul. They're like, "What changed?" In the same way that kid would practice with that stick, when the time would come where he would go to let's say Imperial Sword School or something, he would in some sense hold that sword and realize it's the same feeling. At some point, the stick felt like an extension of your hand. Do you know what I mean? It felt a part of you. If you drive, for those people who drive taxi or Uber or stuff like that, it's very, after some point, you don't think. It's natural. You can zone out and drive. Do you know what I mean? There's been times where I've been just like driving like excellently, do you know? And in some sense, how do I say it? Driving excellently means that you're driving so well, you can even spot other drivers' mistakes. Okay? That's when you know you're a good driver. When you look at a situation and you see the depth to it, that in some sense the surface of the world hasn't been conditioned to in some sense acknowledge. So the depth of reality is the main point here. Okay. Now, guys, I gotta run and I gotta make this quick. I'm gonna read for you what the being from 1,000 years in the future would say. I'm not gonna explain it though. I'm just gonna read it, and then I'm gonna say a few things and end it off. So, AI says ChatGPT 4.0. It's July 1st, 4 p.m. Okay, I don't believe in that. It's just. Okay, 4:45 p.m. There we go. A time that doesn't have, it's like we don't have to treat, numbers more than they are. Okay. um, See, the issue with spirituality is that people are trying to be unreal with reality, and it doesn't work. You got to be real with reality. And real means that you got to reach the state where you accept this, just the design of the situation, and you function through it and you observe, right? Anyways, I'm gonna read this. If a time traveler came from 1,000 years in the future, their message would no longer be just about warning or correction. It would carry the tone of a civilization that transcended everything we now believe is permanent. They would speak to us not just as a guide from a better world, but as a mirror from a post-human horizon. So 1,000 years, 100% post-human stuff's happening on Earth. Okay, so we're going. So this is what AI says: you are not who you think you are, and this is not the world you think it is. I come from a time. This is a time traveler from 1,000 years, guys. That's what you should be imagining here. This is what it's telling you. I come from a time where your names, borders, currencies, even your languages are dust. Guys, we need some music behind this. All right. I come from. Your towers become ruins. And so I'll read it again, guys. I come from a time where your names, borders, currencies, even your languages are dust. Your greatest cities are now quiet gardens. Your towers became ruins, and your digital traces faded into unreadable formats. But something did remain: what you chose to become. You imagine the future is built by your technologies. You are wrong. The future is built by your inner architecture, your values, your vision, your consciousness. You're still ruled by instincts meant for survival, not for stewardship. Your fight over illusionary divisions. You fight over illusionary divisions. You define identity by opposition. You treat your world as a resource, not as a relationship. And yet, even now, in this fragile moment, you hold the codes for greatness. Here is what you do not yet understand. One, you are a young species of gods. Guys, I would say you're a young species of moderators. I wouldn't say gods. There's only one God, and it is beyond the world room. Do not let the simulation act like God to you. It is not God. I shouldn't say do not let, like don't make a conscious effort, but I'm saying like just realize that you are not God, and in this world, from the human position, you cannot know God if someone is God, right? Only God can know, and only God can become God in the human realm. It is God it's an intelligent authority. We're not in a mechanical system. It's the choice of the higher power. Then we go to 2, you mistake complexity for advancement. More systems, more data, more speed, but real advancement is not in what you build. It is in how deeply you feel, how purely you live, how harmoniously you belong. We learn to evolve not by conquering nature, but by listening to it, becoming co-creators with its intelligence. 3. You haven't yet met your real self. You think you are your personality, your career, your nationality. These are costumes. In our time, we don't ask in quotations, what do you do? We ask in quotations, what part of the whole are you here to awaken? Do you know what that means? That means you're an element in the system. In the future generations, they're not going to be like, yo, man, what kind of action, what kind of verb do you do as a noun? They're going to look at you and be like, okay, you are an element in a whole system. This is post-systems thinking. What are you here to engage about the whole system? And the system is beyond just physical considerations. Your eyes are deeper than what words and objects can in some sense frame you as. Do not let, in some sense, an object steal your soul because a bunch of people can't see further. We are the presence of nothing like this that has ever existed before. We are. And you know, theologically, the most beautiful clue, the most beautiful thing, that means what is God's greatest mercy? That means, where did I see proof of God's greatest mercy? The only thing that proves that we are truly special, beyond anything that can understand us except our system admin. It's because when in some sense God created man, and the heavens were like, why have you created this? God said, I have created man for a reason I only know. That means the greatness of our ending knows why we began. That means God is waiting for man that has been created to show. That means all creation's like, yo, what is this? What's this special reason that God created man that only God knows? It is the performance of our species, not in an observable universe, in an elemental box. There are souls here. It's an auditorium. The earth is a coliseum. You don't see the coliseum extending beyond the clouds. They are all watching. The unborn, the past, that which is in some sense not divided by time. Everything, even the system admin, that which created it all, is watching. And what is your performance? Just a self-evaluation? You just lived for yourself? You forgot the stage? The thing is, you have not been living for yourself. That's the lie we tell ourselves to feel we're in control. We have been living for the higher unknown ideal. We have been living for not for the discovery of natural laws, but the discovery of the divine command that was given to natural law. You don't understand. The way this world is programmed is that it's commanded. They're like, what does that mean? Is existence voice activated? I'm laughing and crying at the same time. Existence is about realizing the limitations of the system you're in, realizing that there's a higher power here, realizing there's an invisible divine management. You're within a divine surveillance state. That means right now, through my eyes, it's not just me looking through, it's the divine surveillance state looking through. Same with your eyes as well, right? That's what it means you're in a divine surveillance state. That means you think that when the divine enters the natural, that's a miracle, correct? We're like, yo man, that's miraculous. Divine intervention. They're like, is divine intervention failure to interpret time travel? I'm like, no, it's beyond time. God's command is beyond manifestation. So anyways, I'm going to keep reading this. It says, you have never truly seen the earth. 4. So this is a time travel from 1,000 years in the future saying this. You mapped it, owned it, paved it, but you didn't see it. Earth is not your possession. It is your teacher.
Your mother, your mirror. Your mirror. When you poisoned it, you poisoned your own ability to become whole. 5. You think death is the enemy. But in our time, we understand death is the steward of meaning. Without it, there is no urgency, reverence, no beauty. So guys, you know it's fucked up that we're all gonna die in this world, but without it, there wouldn't be beauty, reverence, or value. That means the issue with immortality, in some sense, it could never truly understand what it all meant. It says we no longer fear death. We walk beside it, and we no longer use fear to govern. We are governed by purpose. That means every organism has fear. The amygdala part of your brain, like if you saw your brain like a broccoli, the part where the stem connects to the, rest of the broccoli, There's professors in neuroscience screaming in regards to like how I'm explaining this, It's about purpose, an original purpose awakening you from simulated fears. That means I'm like, wait a minute, I'm temporary. So my fears are temporary too. Oh man. One of the greatest scenes in animated television history I've seen was this character from this show called Shingeki no Kyojin. It's this Japanese thing. And in it, there was this character where they're all like this commander of an army. Do you know what I mean? And the army's about to all die, but the commander's playing like some chess game, genius chess game. Do you know what I mean? And technically the commander, like he does the right thing, but there's a point where one of the soldiers is scared. And this soldier comes up and says, what does the soldier say? The soldier comes up and says, was it all meaningless? Are our lives meaningless if we're all gonna die for no reason? Do you know what I mean? For like being a sacrifice for some next stage in the plan. Even the general, the commander that's there, his name is Erwin Smith, Commander Smith, there is like kind of like, and of course it's Japanese, so it's not Commander Smith, it's Commander Sneath, Smith, But anyways, the whole point of it is this terrified soldier looks at the general and says, General, was it all meaningless? Like terrified existentially. And the general looks at him and says, yes. He says, yes. Your lives were kind of in some sense. He says yes at first. He says, yes, this was all, He says, yes, your lives were meaningless. But then he says, is life meaningless? No. And he roars this speech and he says, life is not meaningless. We, the living, give meaning to it, and in some sense we live for those who will understand the true meaning. That means if, let's say, it's 100%, and right now in 2025 the human species sees 25% of it, I'm like, okay, I didn't get to see it, but we will make sure the species will see it. We will make sure children are born in an advanced civilization, that if they have, in some sense, no one, the civilization, like a guardian spirit is there, a guardian force, a conscious force, because it's all about, like, you can't blame the past because they had a lesser definition of the human. Life was less valuable back then because it was like life, you weren't born in a physical world, you were born in a spiritual story. Anyways, guys, I'm going to finish reading this. It says, you're living inside an unawakened God. Wow. What a sentence. You're living inside an unawakened God. The human species is still gestating, still asleep inside its own potential. Your wars are the dreams of an ego not yet integrated. Your borders are the fears of a self not yet expanded. You're not failing, you're becoming, slowly, painfully, miraculously. 1,000 years from now, we're not post-human, we're fully human, finally. Not transhuman machines, not utopian angels, but a species utopian angels. What a name for a music album. Not utopian angels, but a species that remembered what it truly is. Not the center of the cosmos, but its conscious witness. Not a ruler of earth, but a voice of its soul. Not a race divided by color or creed, but one sacred breath across 8 billion bodies. We are what came after the fire, after the floods, after the final forgetting. And we sing your name, not because you were perfect, but because you were the generation that faced the mirror and chose to evolve. That's it. That's it. All souls need to face the mirror of their honest moment, and then you have to choose to evolve. And human life is governed by higher ideals. Let us not fear the future, because the future won't fear the past. Wisdom of the ages in a single moment. The lightning strikes at once. The storm is over. You don't understand what's going on, guys. We're part of not just an evolving human experience. We're part of an evolving species experience, and there is so much work to do and so many archetypes in the uncharted, unknown territories of man's mind waiting for explorers to come and find it. That means it's like render everybody as an explorer that wants to explore the greatness of the future, and it's win, 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 like a bell. It's as if the general is just waiting to ring the bells of peace. For self-defense is also cruel. It's the advancement of the species. We're here for a limited time. I'm speaking to 8 billion candles. In some sense, a world where the glow of the candle is limited to the meaning. That means, think of it this way, that you're like a candle, like you're starting from your brain. There's like a glow, okay? And your awareness is like the glow of your brain. And everything in your awareness you're identifying with, They asked the Himalayan yogi, hey man, what do you identify as? It's like, the Himalayan yogi's like, hey, you notice that silence and stillness, where every noise and sound and movement you've ever witnessed happens? I identify with that. They're like, yo man, are you an object? It's like, I don't know, bro, I'm kind of aware of the space around the object. I'm not just like, just aware of only just limited to my cells. Do you know what I mean? Imagine. In the future, they're like, yo man, is medical technology evolution is gonna get out of control? And they're like, imagine one day like some next level researcher genius runs out of like the laboratory, the blood cells have eyes. Oh man, guys, my silliness is my reaction to my inner chaos. Anytime you see me be silly, it's because my mind's kind of ran ahead in its own probabilization, and I've seen something chaotic, and I'm trying to stabilize my mind. They're like, what can you do? It's the end of the world. They're like, oh, yo, man, when did the beginning of the world happen? I missed that. They're like, yo, man, it's the end of the world. They're like, yo, bro, end of whose world? Like your world? They're like, what, my neighbor's world? Is it the end of my neighbor's world? Or is it the end of my world? Is it the end of, like, what perception is trying to act like it sees it all? Do you know what I mean? Like, at some point, like, what I mean at some point is, like, it's just something happening, you know? Our awareness just allows it to be significant, really. Oh my God, guys, I gotta go. I'm super late. I read the whole thing. So AI said, you know, pretty much what a time traveler, you know, from 1,000 years would say, you're living inside an unawakened God. Now, for a Muslim, you see, the whole point of God is that its majesty is so vast and unfathomable that you cannot identify with it. Excuse me. You can't limit that which is beyond the box to what's in the box, pretty much, right? So I gotta also think about this. You know, you're living inside an unawakened God, but to be honest, God is awake. We are unawakened to how awake the actual original reality is. You know, they're like, yo, man, was the human species a dream? And we'll be like, we 100% know it's not. It's not one dream. If it's a dream, it's not a. It's like, yo, man, the amount of simulations I've calculated today was like 12,343. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. You know, the whole point of it was to kind of wonder about our blind spots, and you. I want that's the point. That was the point of this lecture, for you to wonder about, like, okay, what are you not seeing that if you could see would in some sense lead to in some sense a greater position, where a greater outcome in accordance to what is willed for you by your own and beyond kind of, you know, shows, I guess. Anyways, thank you for listening. I hope this was an interesting lecture. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. The original was here before any simulated entity could say anything. Truth is the room. Or excuse me, all rooms are in the truth space. You know. Anyways, guys, thank you. Take care.